Spring might just be the tastiest season of the year. A walk through any market in China right now is a feast for the senses. The sheer variety of leafy greens is enough to make your head spin, and they are delicious in every way imaginable. Steamed, stir-fried, minced, tossed into soups, or served cold. They're crisp yet tender, bitter yet sweet. As we fire up our stoves to cook another meal, I can't help but wonder. Every day, across the world, millions of stoves ignite. But what does that mean for our planet? Cooking is such an ordinary part of life that we hardly think about its impact. But if we zoom out, over the course of a lifetime across billions of households, those tiny clicks add up. They represent trillions of meals, and depending on the fuel source, they also represent a significant share of global emissions. Many cities are using natural gas, which is considered a clean cooking fuel by international standards. In contrast, many other households around the world still rely on coal, wood, or even animal dung, fuels that release harmful air pollution. Based on the United Nations count, about a third of the global population still cooks with such energy. So, where does the world stand when it comes to the future of cooking fuels? I'm Fei Fei, and welcome to a new episode of Climate Watch. When digging into this topic, I came across a fascinating study titled Energy, Poverty, Inequality SDGs, a large-scale household analysis and forecasting in China. The research highlights a crucial link between access to clean cooking fuels, rising household income, and even reductions in income inequality. In short, switching to cleaner fuels isn't just about cutting emissions. It's also about economic empowerment. And so for this, I have one of the authors, Zhang Lin, joining me for this episode. He's an associate professor with the School of Energy and Environment at City University of Hong Kong, where his primary research focuses on energy and sustainability economics. Hello, Lin. Thank you for coming to Climate Watch.
Hello, Fei Fei. Thank you for inviting me to join this Climate Watch.
So for starters, can you first share some of your key findings at the paper? What are some of the most significant takeaways from your research this time?
Sure. Actually, our research uncovered a powerful relationship between clean cooking fuels and economic well-being. In China, a 10% increase in clean fuel adoption, like gas or electricity, could inject $37 billion into household incomes annually. But here is what really groundbreaking. It is not just about wealthier households upgrading their kitchens. The biggest gains happen at the bottom. Low-income families using clean fuel saw income jumps, while high earners have a negligible change. Why? Two big reasons. First, health wins. Clean fuels cut respiratory diseases, saving China $2.3 billion annually in medical bills. Fewer sick days means steadier paychecks. Second, time magic. Users save 0.4 hours daily from not gathering firewood or babysitting stoves. Imagine a rural family switching from smoky coal to biogas. Mom spends less time gathering fuel, that chronic cough improves, and suddenly both can take on extra work at local factory. This time dividend and health dividend create a rising tide that lifts the poorest boat fastest. The old idea that we need wealthier first to go green totally flipped. Clean energy is not just a luxury, it's a ladder out of poverty.
That's very interesting, as you mentioned that the role of clean cooking fuels that you examined. So you mentioned about the use of gas and electricity, but how does that compare to the traditional or older ways of cooking fuel choices? What were their choices before?
Let's break down the fuel landscape. So clean in our study means that anything that doesn't require burning solid, like what I already mentioned, electricity, gas, and also including, for example, the liquid petroleum gas or even solar-powered cookers. But adoption isn't just about what's technically clean. So, for example, in Guizhou, in those mountainous regions, families still stick with firewood, not because they love smoke. Meanwhile, Shanghai office workers adopt induction stoves faster because high-rise apartment ban coal. In fact, the choice of using different fuels or different appliances is dependent by several key factors. The most important one is the income. A factory worker making 300 US dollar per month might not buy a gas stove at the cost of 50 US dollar. Even we know that this kind of stove can save money from a long-term perspective. And second reason is because the energy literacy. So educated household will adopt faster because they value their health metrics and they trust the new technology. And third, the geography. So for people living in those urban areas, they have the pipeline, they have the grid, but in rural areas, people don't have. For instance, most Shanghai households use natural gas, while remote villages in Gansu rely on coal. Those mountainous regions lack of this kind of infrastructure. The infrastructure cost is too high. Laying pipelines there is more difficult than in flat areas. So in China, we have this West-East gas pipeline project. This kind of project is not just an engineering feat. It suddenly made the gas cheaper than coal for Eastern people, so people can adopt this more quickly and efficiently.
Then, as you mentioned, geography plays a very important role in, for example, promoting the network of clean fuels. Then, what are the other challenges that a household, especially I think in rural areas, would face in terms of when they want to transition into cleaner choices?
So when we talk about the challenges faced by households transitioning to clean fuels, actually these kind of challenges are multifaceted. So including affordability, accessibility, and reliability. So in my opinion, actually these factors are equally important, and none of them can be overlooked. So in terms of affordability, transitioning to clean fuel or clean energy means that incurring certain upfront costs, such as building biogas digesters or purchasing clean energy stoves. For low-income families, especially for those in the rural areas, the expenses are often difficult to afford. Therefore, in our research, or when we are analyzing the household transitioning paths to the clean energy, we fully consider scenarios like an energy subsidies, stove subsidies. So in China, already has promoted this clean energy widely through policies such as the rural biogas projects, poverty alleviation through PV, and this kind of policy significantly reduces the cost for farmers to use this clean energy. So recently, China has been implementing a national-wide subsidy program where many kitchen stoves are included under this subsidy scheme. And second, regarding the accessibility, so this is the major obstacle for many families living in those mountainous areas when it's come to transitioning to clean energy. They rely more on firewood for cooking, not because they prefer polluting fuels, but because it is challenging to extend the electricity or natural gas pipelines into those regions. So resolving the issue of access to clean energy often requires significant investment in infrastructure development. So, for example, China addresses these problems through like this West-East gas transmission projects. In terms of a reliability, so existing sources of clean energy often fall short compared to those traditional sources regarding reliability. For instance, PV power generation is difficult during the cloudy days, while some rural areas will frequently experience power shortage or power outage. In such cases, if there is a lack of effective maintenance services support, residents will find it very difficult to use clean energy, especially for elderly people. Therefore, promoting reliability aspect of clean energy should be considered by providing necessary support and assurance promptly during these blackouts, offering backup power facilities when there's this kind of need.
And as you mentioned, having the infrastructure ready is very important if we want to promote the more access to clean cooking fields. And that, I think, much of the responsibility really comes to the government. So what do you think? How can your finding inspire or help policymakers in the future design of such policies to promote the use of clean fuels among households?
Good question. Our research findings actually links multiple sustainable development goals, SDGs, defined by the United Nations. So including energy, poverty, and inequality. I think the most important policy insight is to consider the transitioning to clean energy and the improvement of household wealth as a systemic program rather than just focusing on the penetration rate of clean energy. For example, combining the construction of clean energy infrastructure with creating job opportunities. In rural areas, large-scale livestock farmers can be paired with big gas digesters. Families can effectively convert the time saved from collecting firewood into working hours. This approach provides local residents with the opportunity to increase income while achieving a clean energy transition. Similar practices, including providing low-income families with free rooftop PV system, for example, and electricity generated then can help families undergo an electricity transformation process, and those surplus power generated can be sold to the national grid. This can also increase the household income. Right, the key point of this policy insight is to link the transition to clean energy with the inclusive income increasing measures to minimizing the barriers for low-income households in adopting clean energy sources and offering effective opportunities for increasing income. Imagine if even after switching to clean energy, a family has improved health and more time available, but lacks additional income generating opportunity while needing to bear the cost of clean energy. This situation would only worsen without avenues for increased income or increased earnings. Therefore, a systematic policy design is crucial in ensuring the inclusivity and fairness in the transition towards clean energy.
There is actually a common perception, I think, between clean energy and inequality. Most people would assume that the use of clean energy is expensive. And of course, for low income households, and they are sort of out of reach of clean energy. So do you think your study this time really are challenging such perception that clean energy doesn't necessarily mean more money?
That's a very good question. So it's a time to break this traditional view. As you mentioned, the key factor exacerbating energy inequality with clean energy is its high price. However, we calculate the hidden cost of polluting fuels. We may have different findings. It is well known that the polluting fuels are very cheap. And for example, one can collect the firewood by themselves without spending a penny. So in this sense, the cost of using polluting fuel is much lower compared to those clean fuels. However, polluting fuels generate serious air pollution problems during use and can increase the probability of respiratory diseases such as lung problems, significantly affecting the maternal infant health. If we consider this kind of medical expenses and even discounting the value of life lost due to premature deaths caused by pollution from burning these fuels, the cost of using them is not low at all. Using polluting fuels also incur higher opportunity costs, including time spent to collect these fuels and extra cooking time due to their low combustion efficiency. Taking all these factors into account in the long run perspective, it shows that polluting fuels is not economically viable. People often focus on the cost of clean energy but overlook these hidden benefits. So what makes low-income group feel that clean fuel is out of reach? It often due to the high initial investment cost and whether they can effectively realize the health benefits, time saving from clean fuel. This is crucial in determining whether clean energy is cost effective or not. I believe that through effective policy design can change people's perception towards clean energy.
But as you also mentioned in your study, you examined, for example, households in Shanghai, comparing them with households, for example, in the West, in Gansu or Guizhou. And apparently, those in Shanghai are easier to adopt cleaner and more advanced cooking appliances and also cooking fuels. Well, for those in the West, they're sort of reluctant to make this choice. So, how do you think we can encourage them to adopt clean energy and also to make sure that they feel confident to make such choice? Is there some kind of policies that we can launch, or there are other ways to do this?
So I think this depends on different factors which determines how the household make their options, fuel options. So our research actually found that using clean energy can generate good health benefits, reducing the probability of families suffering from respiratory diseases. And so we believe that the first thing is that we have to make sure people understand these benefits. So health is similar to education, is very important form of a human capital, and this could be a very significant source for income generation for families. So if people can understand this kind of benefits, it's not only for increasing the income for the household, but it can also help the future generation of the kids. Because when you imagine that when switching to clean energy, parents will not be exhausted due to this smoky cooking method. They can also help with homework for the children while the children can study under bright electric light at night. Child development is closely related to those intergeneration income mobility. So this is very important for people to understand. In addition to improving human capital, is clean energy will save the time spent for fuel collections and shortens the cooking duration. So this will be an extra benefit for those families. Family can invest this saved time into work activities such as improving farming or taking up temporary jobs to earn extra income. So, and these kind of benefits are compounding. So when families earn more income, they can invest more resources in enhancing human capital to earn even more. And through this mechanism, low-income household can achieve upward mobility towards higher income while narrowing down the gap of high-income household, reducing inequality. And also, I think that is particularly important. So we should emphasize this policy that design that could be comprehensive to deliver this clear message to those households to help them understand what are the benefits and to consider different dimensions of these sustainable development goals because these benefits are linked with multiple SDGs.
Your study also carries implications to the concept of just transition, which is gaining a lot of tractions globally right now. Is basically to ensure that vulnerable communities, for example, those living in rural areas in China, are not left behind in the shift to clean energy. And how do you think China can what sort of steps can China take to make sure those lower income population, regardless living in rural or urban areas, can benefit from the transition to cleaner energy?
The main point in our research is that so when we design this energy policy, it is necessary to comprehensively consider poverty, inequality reduction development goals, such as combining with rural economic growth and other development strategies. In fact, China's existing energy policy have already taken this into account. So families can increase their income by selling surplus electricity while adopting clean energy. And additionally, it should be noted that how low-income families can realize the hidden benefits of energy transitions, right? Including the health benefits, time saving, as I already mentioned. And this is crucial for whether families can benefit from energy transition. Moreover, several steps are needed for a just transition fast. A, we need strong policy framework that focus on social equity in the energy transition. So this means the retraining or reskilling programs for workers moving from fossil fuel industries to a renewable sectors, for example. And we also need a financial support subsidies for low-income households to make sure they can have affordable clean energy and to help them to overcome the initial cost of these new technologies. So it is also important to engage with the local communities to understand their localized needs and concerns and to providing tailored transition strategy to specific regional contexts to ensure the benefits are widely shared. So creating new job opportunities in the renewable energy sector is essential, and this includes investing in education training program to equip workers with necessary skills, investing in infrastructure projects that support renewable energy in rural areas, in the mountainous areas, and this can help ensure that all communities have equal access to clean energy. I think by taking all these steps, China can make sure its energy transition is not only effective in tackling climate change, but also fair and inclusive and can benefit everyone in society.
There are also concerns that a very fast adoption of clean energy sometimes will exacerbate inequality, especially if not managed very carefully or not designed very carefully. So, do you think it's possible for us to see that we can achieve sustainability without deepening the already existing disparities and inequality in our society? And what sort of conditions or methods are necessary to ensure, as you mentioned, the inclusiveness of climate policies?
It is true that if we don't manage it carefully, the rapid switch to clean energy could make inequality worse. But it is definitely possible to achieve sustainable development without deepening social disparities. We just need to take a thoughtful and inclusive approach. So the crucial path to achieving sustainable development, those SDG goals defined by the United Nations, without deepening social disparity, is how we can ensure that the income growth rate of low-income groups surpasses that of high-income groups. So regulating social income inequality cannot rely on just robbing the rich to help the poor, right? The main purpose of narrowing down this income gap is by promoting fast upward mobility for those low-income groups. So therefore, to promote clean energy requires to accelerate the income for low-income groups through both mechanisms, revenue generation and cost reduction strategies. Revenue generation means that we have to expand the household income channels through clean energy initiatives to provide additional income through, for example, this PV poverty alleviation program provided by the government. Right? They will have extra income sources, and also we have to focus on the cost reduction part in the same time. Cost reduction involves reducing household costs in energy transition through, for example, a subsidies for energy or subsidies from installing these appliances by implementing a combination of this revenue generation and cost reduction measures. I believe these low-income families have the opportunity to catch up with those high-income families. By doing this, we are able to narrow the income gap within our society, and then we are able to achieve this social equality.
And of course, making this transition requires funding, a challenge that many countries struggle with. A recent report from the International Energy Agency, IEA, acknowledges that countries like China, India, and Indonesia have made significant progress in promoting clean cooking technologies. But in other regions, particularly across Africa, progress is falling behind. In fact, the African Energy Chamber estimates that 900 million people on the continent still lack access to clean cooking technologies. Most of them are women and girls. The IEA suggests that solving this global challenge would require an investment of $8 billion per year between now and 2030 to fund clean stoves, better infrastructure, and fuel distribution networks. But where will this money come from? Beyond government policies, something that I discussed with Professor Zhang Lin before in this episode, there's also an emerging approach, using carbon markets to fund clean cooking projects. Cook stove projects can issue carbon credits based on the emissions avoided when cleaner stoves and fuels replace polluting alternatives. These credits can then be sold, helping to finance further expansion. Some projects have already deployed thousands of stoves globally, with the majority focusing in Africa. They offer households cleaner fuels or design cooking methods that require less firewood and charcoal. But not all projects are created equal. For example, Sequest Capital, a firm based in Washington, D.C., has recently faced scrutiny over its emission calculations. Critics are arguing that its methodologies may overstate climate benefits. So the question now is whether they and other similar initiatives can refine their approaches and deliver on their promises. The path to clean cooking is quite clear, but progress hinges on money, technology, and also awareness. A study by the Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences found that digital literacy influences farmers' household cooking fuel decisions in China. As digital technology becomes more widespread and education levels rise, rural communities, especially young people, are gaining greater awareness of clean energy benefits. This growing knowledge shapes their behaviors and lifestyles, driving a shift toward cleaner cooking solutions. So, as you turn on your stove today, consider this. What's fueling your meal? And what is fueling change? A huge thank you to Professor Zhang Lin of City University of Hong Kong, and thank you for listening to this episode of Climate Watch. If you have any questions about climate change, suggestions for future episodes, or just some thoughts that you want to share, feel free to reach out to me at fei.fei@cgtn.com, fei.fei@cgtn.com. And also, make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform, or find me on Substack at Rivers and Mountains. Until next time, stay curious.